I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Things are going to get a little graphic here. I will try my best to tiptoe around some of the phraseology that I have to use here. But we're talking about the allegations associated with this hip-hop mogul billionaire, Sean Diddy Combs. And, you know, you think about the name and how long he's been rich and powerful and famous and such a huge part of hip-hop culture and pop culture. And what we're talking about now, it's quite shocking. It really is. I mean, people are talking about him in the same breath as like Jeffrey Epstein at this point, based upon allegations that he denies and that have not been proven. But now we know that his homes were raided. This is part of a federal sex trafficking investigation. And it wasn't, you know, a couple of guys showing up, hey, can we see your phone? No, this was, I mean, large numbers of people, a show of force, military-style vehicles, ripping through everything in his home in LA and one of his homes down on Miami's Star Island. Now, TMZ obtained images of the aftermath of the raid at Diddy's LA mansion. And here you can see they tore the place apart. They tore it apart. I mean, they're looking anywhere and everywhere, and it seems like they're very focused on electronic devices and then anywhere where a hard drive or a thumb drive could be found. This is a real search. And they seize things. There they are, going in, taking the servers and the hard drives, like ripping this stuff out. It's a real investigation. Like, this isn't like, oh, let's take a quick look, see if we can find something. You know, let's just, you know, kind of cover our bases here because, you know, someone was complaining. This is a serious investigation, absolutely serious. When I asked R. Kelly's lawyer last night how serious he thinks this is, 0 to 10, he said 12. Steve Greenberg said 12. Now, we know very little about the federal investigation except that it comes on the heels of a couple of civil complaints that were filed against Diddy. The first one by Cassandra Ventura, Cassie, someone who spent 11 years, I guess, on and off with Diddy. They were a thing. They were a couple. There they are. Now, she filed this suit. The next day, things were settled. And we don't know the details of the settlement. But we do know the details of the complaint. Are you ready? I warned you already. I'm going to try to dance around some of the language if I have to here. But here in the complaint, she describes these things called freak-offs, okay? The first time Mr. Combs hired a man and brought the man to his home in Los Angeles. The man, Mr. Combs, and Ms. Ventura wore masquerade masks and ingested drugs. Mr. Combs directed Ms. Ventura to perform sexual acts with this man while Mr. Combs watched them. He pleasured himself while he directed Ms. Ventura and the man to do specific acts. The entire encounter lasted multiple days. Mr. Combs began to call this arrangement a freak-off, or FO. Ms. Ventura was eventually instructed to use websites and escort services to find male sex workers to participate in these FOs. Mr. Combs told Ms. Ventura to search for large black men on the website. Sometimes Mr. Combs would pay to fly the male sex workers to his location. Mr. Combs always supplied Ms. Ventura and the sex worker with copious amounts of drugs before, during the FOs. Ms. Ventura was given ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and alcohol in excessive amounts during these FOs, which allowed her to disassociate during these horrific encounters. It became commonplace to get IV fluids in the days after an FO to recover from the excessive substances pushed upon her. During the FOs, in addition to directing Ms. Ventura and pleasuring himself, Mr. Combs would use his phone, laptop, and tablet to film Ms. Ventura having sex with the hired sex worker. He treated the forced encounter as a personal art project, adjusting the candles he used for lighting to frame the videos that he took. All right, that's a sample of that complaint. She filed the complaint, settled the next day. She had been with him for 11 years. So, are they investigating this? I don't know. There's videos, I don't know. She's of age, he's of age, arguably consensual. She's saying it's not, but it's all on video. What does the video tell us? Now, a subsequent lawsuit filed by Rodney Smith, known as Lil Rod, a man who worked for Diddy as a producer and perhaps did other things. And Lil Rod describes sex parties that had taken place. Diddy had sex workers and endless drugs flowing through the recording sessions at CRS, the recording studio, Mr. Combs' homes, and on the yacht. According to Mr. Jones, Mr. Combs felt there was too much testosterone in the studio and wanted sex workers there to create the vibe for the Love album. Then these workers arrived, and Mr. Jones and the other musicians and producers were required to engage in sex acts with them. In addition to sex workers, there were at least 5 women in the crowd who were under the age of 16. Here we go. Now, this could be what we're talking about in terms of a federal investigation. According to Mr. Jones, Mr. Combs forced all the women to drink laced De Leon liquor. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs laced the liquor with ecstasy. He attempted to leave, and Mr. Combs forced him to stay, Mr. Jones. Okay, now let's move one more step further. And I want to remind you of what I said at the top, that some people are talking about a comparison here between billionaire Diddy and billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Well, Jeffrey Epstein had his Ghislaine Maxwell, and we know that she took care of him, including his feet. I still can't believe this picture. It's bizarre. Like, it's one thing to do it, but then you're going to photograph. What is wrong with these people? Too much money? Too much time? What is it? That's Ghislaine Maxwell. She's in prison now because of her role in Epstein's little setup that he had. Actually, it's a big setup. Had his own island. And that black book that we'll never see. Now, Little Rob describes someone named Christine Coram. And as I describe her, think about Ghislaine Maxwell. Coram required all employees, from the butler to the chef to the housekeepers, to walk around with a black Prada pouch or fanny pack filled with cocaine, ecstasy, and other drugs. Coram ordered sex workers for Mr. Combs. Coram also sent Mr. Jones to solicit sex workers for Mr. Combs. When the sex workers arrived at Mr. Combs' residence, defendant Coram would negotiate their price and would take them aside and pay them. So she sort of is alleged to have kind of set everything up the way that Ghislaine was alleged to set things up for Jeffrey Epstein. Is this a fair comparison? Well, I think there are some comparisons here. Some slight differences, but they're both really rich, really powerful, and all of us are very shocked by what we're learning. But I have some questions about all of this. Let me bring in my special guest. Joining me tonight in St. Louis, Missouri, licensed mental health and nationally certified clinician, Sharonda Brown. Sharonda, great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Okay, let's start with the freak-offs. And I mean, it became part of the basis for Cassie to sue. She's claiming this was not consensual. She's forced into this. They're in some sort of a relationship over the course of 11 years. Take us into the mindset of Cassie and why she would hang around that long, and what this means about what's going on in this relationship and the power and the dynamics in the relationship.
I think it's important to note that Cassie was 19 when she first met Mr. Combs, and he was well into his 30s. So let's pin that. She was definitely young. She was an aspiring singer. She wanted a record deal. So she was looking at that. That's what she was looking at. And he saw that as an opportunity to take advantage, which is what a lot of predators do. So what we would see, or the outsiders would see as a relationship, actually became this predatory relationship based on what she could get if she was to serve him. And I think that over time, that became the leverage. It was, do you want this record deal, or do you want me to make sure your life is easy or your life is good? And I think at some point when you become a victim of sexual abuse, you start to think about all the things that you would lose if you did not engage. And not just you, but the people around you. And reading the case, she was definitely abused and she was held against her will a lot, as well as her friends. So there were a lot of allegations in that report that gave her reason to stick beside him. And it wasn't because she was in love.
Okay, now let's take a look at Diddy and these allegations. And again, he's denying all of this, is not admitting any guilt or any crime or anything like that. But if we, and it's a big if, right? Because nothing's been proven, they settled it. We'll never hear the details in a courtroom. But if he's engaging in this kind of conduct, how does he get to that point, right?
Getting away with it. Getting away with it over and over, and having people who are approving it, applauding it, even people bigger than him. So when you read these reports, you see that he was not alone most of the time in engaging in these acts. And a lot of things happen with people in this field when they have a lot of power and money, and people around them will be silent because they want to save their own lives. So once you start getting away with it, especially when you've been doing this for allegedly over 20-something years, you become invincible, or at least you believe that you are. So this is how these things happen. So of course he's going to say, nope, I didn't do it. I don't have, any guilt or anything, because from where he stands, people sign NDAs, they agree to it, and regardless of whether or not he coerced them or whether he offered them something, in his mind, in what I call a sociopath, in a sociopath's mind, people did it what they wanted to do.
This Christina Karam and the dynamic between her and Diddy, and then the dynamic of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Are these similar? Do you see them differently? How do you see the alleged roles and the nature of these relationships?
I think they're very similar. And what you'll find with a lot of predators, or what you'll find with even men who are very powerful, to get other women, you have to have other women. To convince other women to come to you, you have to have someone of like-mindedness to convince them that this is okay and that this is safe, because that is the trusting factor. That is the luring factor. Him going to women and saying, hey, come see me, is probably not going to be as likely as a woman who is likable going to other women. And this is how they gain the trust. They gain the trust through the woman. And that is how a lot of these women get coerced or get into these situations, because they're made to believe that they are safe by the likes of a woman. So this is very, very common in those type of relationships and those coercions. You have to have someone who is likable, who is warm, to get and lure other people to you if you want them to be a victim.
So how does a Ghislaine Maxwell, or potentially, allegedly, a Christina Karam, get into that position, and how do they see themselves?
Most of the time, they started out as victims as well and found themselves becoming engulfed in the culture. And usually they've gotten too much perks, too much money. Maybe there are things that would happen in their life that were made easier, to the point where they believe they owe the person who is asking them to do these things. There's a lot of manipulation that goes on, and depending upon how early these women got involved, they definitely could have invested so much time and could have been given a lot of things to believe that they owe Diddy for some reason, or they owe Epstein. So it starts with mental manipulation. And I truly believe that when you get in those situations, you too were a victim at first in order for you to believe that it's okay.
And how do you see the relationship between the incredible wealth and the deviancy, the sexual deviancy? Like, is it always there? Does the money cause it? Does the money exaggerate it? What is that relationship?
I think that when it comes to sexual deviancy and sexual trauma, most of the time people are very sexual. Sex is a human need, right? But then when you go overboard or when someone has taken that from you or someone has violated you in a way, what you learn is there is pleasure and there's some type of resolve in violating others. So that's one aspect of it. But when you add money to it, which gives you leverage, it allows other people to say, sure, we'll agree with this because you have money. Sure, we will do this because you have money. You can make our lives easier. So then it becomes a quid pro quo situation, or it becomes a situation of, convenience in which people are saying, okay, well, you're going to make my life easier. I'll suffer so you can make my life easier. And so the deviant wins, meaning the predator wins, and then the victim believes that they are getting something out the deal as well. But then it becomes very gritty, very grimy. And so it takes a life of its own. But they are very two separate entities, because people who portray sexual acts or who put on sexual acts and they're in poverty, it would be a totally different outcome.
Sharonda Brown, great to have you on the program tonight. Great insight. Thank you so much. I'm sorry you had to talk about this, but you are an expert in helping us understand it to a certain extent. Thanks so much, Sharonda.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, what does the think tank think of the freak-offs? Oh my goodness, did you see their expressions during that segment? I did. They're next.
A Michigan mother accused of killing her husband and then fleeing the country.
The defendant was extradited from Italy.
His charred remains found in a box in a blueberry patch.
The defendant could be punished with life without parole.
2 people have been convicted in this case.
Was Beverly McCallum running away from a criminal past?
Now it's up to a jury to decide.
The fugitive wife murder trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back. That's the booking photo for a man named Brendan Paul. Not his best day. He was arrested in Miami on the same day that federal authorities were raiding Diddy's home on Star Island in Miami and one of his other homes in Los Angeles. Brendan Paul is an associate of Sean Diddy Combs. Let's take a look. We got a picture of him with Diddy. There he is, apparently with some drugs. He's got the shades on. There he is with Diddy. I believe that's from the Miami airport, the day that he got arrested. So who is this guy? Well, he's been described as sort of a drug mule for Diddy. Now, I don't know if that's true. That's the way some people are describing him. He's facing some drug charges, and Scripps News Cleveland tonight has more on who this man is.
Booking photos of Brendan Paul, snapped in a South Florida jail Monday, are a departure from the images shared on his public-facing Facebook profile of life in the sphere of a celebrity. Miami-Dade police arrested the 25-year-old at the Miami airport as he was about to board a private jet with Sean Diddy Combs. Officers were working with Homeland Security when they found cocaine and marijuana-laced candy in Paul's bag, both felonies in Florida. Diddy was not arrested, but the hip-hop mogul and some of his associates, including Paul, are named in this explosive lawsuit filed by Diddy's former producer Rodney Jones. Jones levels accusations of sexual assault, drug abuse, sex trafficking, and other crimes. Both Jones and Paul worked on Diddy's most recent album, which Paul celebrated on social media in September. Court documents include some of those social media photos of Paul and Diddy together. The lawsuit labels Paul as a mule who acquires and distributes drugs and guns. It also says he provided cash payments to sex workers on Diddy's behalf. And one witness described seeing Paul and others spiking champagne bottles with ecstasy while on a yacht in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Jones alleges Diddy was running a sex trafficking venture, and his associates, including Paul, were aiding and abetting it. Paul graduated from Hawkins School and then briefly attended Syracuse University, where he played basketball. His bio there listed his hometown as Shaker Heights and said he was majoring in sports management. We visited the Chagrin Falls address listed as Paul's current home and arrest records. No one answered the door, but someone yelled no comment through a window. We also reached out to Paul's attorney, who simply said, quote, "We do not plan on trying this case in the media. All issues will be dealt with in the court." The same day Paul was arrested, Homeland Security raided and took evidence from Diddy's Miami and Beverly Hills homes. He has denied Jones's allegations. Northeast Ohio-based Collaborative to End Human Trafficking weighed in on this situation, telling us in a statement, quote, "Every time human trafficking is in the news, it is a reminder that victims are exploited every day. It can happen to anyone from anywhere. The connection to Northeast Ohio in these specific allegations remind us that it happens here too. What's important to focus on is that human trafficking is solvable." Right now, Paul is scheduled to appear on those criminal charges in Miami in late April. In civil court, Jones is asking for at least $30 million in damages against Diddy and all of his associates. In Cleveland, Captain Ross, News 5.
So the question is, will the feds now try to flip the mule? Let's bring in our think tank, see what they have to say about all that. Joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. Joining us in Phoenix, Arizona, the attorney who represented that woman. You know her, but I'm not going to say her name. Kirk Nurmi is with us. And in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Chapel Hill, North Carolina. President of the West Coast Trial Lawyers and former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Are the West Coast lawyers now joining the ACC also? Oh, my goodness. Anyway, all right. Eklund, I'm going to begin with you. Do you want to start with the freak-offs or flipping the mule?
Oh, my God. This is bad. This is bad. This is Homeland Security. I mean, they investigate terrorism. But I do believe that I think that it's not going to be as easy as people may think. I think that since the settlement with Cassie, I think Diddy probably has been prepared for this. I think that it's going to be a lot of lawyering. It's not going to be easy. It's like an X-rated version of Power. This is so intriguing. I didn't know these things happened.
That's good that you didn't know this was happening, because that meant you were on the invite list and you weren't.
Oh,
that's
my
good.
God.
That's a good thing.
But he is like a pillar in like hip hop community, in the hip hop spaces. And this is major. I think this affects countless careers, countless families. The fact that that everything is relevant. Everything is relevant. So this is going to shake up the music industry like nothing else has done.
Oh, absolutely. Kirk Nurmi, I want to ask you, what criminal activity, if any, did you hear in the description of the sex parties that I went through tonight and the freak-offs, other than the underage? Like the underage, that's crystal clear. But are there other crimes taking place there that would be subject to this federal investigation? Or do you think it's a focus on underage sex workers or underage women, underage boys that may be trafficked into having sex with adults in different, not sex, but being abused by adults in different places?
Well, I think the underage children are certainly, and obviously rightly so, going to be a big part of it, Vinny. But when you talk about the laundry list, if you look at these civil complaints, the laundry list is long. We don't have time enough tonight to consider all the possible crimes. But we have possession of drugs, narcotics. We have sexual assaults. These are state crimes, right? We have, again, perhaps if there were videos taken of these events, as some of the civil complaints allege, then you have possession of perhaps photographs of underage children, child pornography. You have the possession of drugs. You have the importing of sex workers, which is a federal violation. So you've got a lot there, Vinny, that again, this onion is going to be peeled. If some of the complaints are true, or the civil complaints, a lot of this might be on video. I'm sure those agents are pouring through the video now. And of course, as your question, Eklund, implied, I bet Mr. Paul knows a lot about these things. Mr. Paul is 25 years old, and he's going to be looking to save his skin. And I bet he's going to have a lot to say to authorities. He's going to sing them a nice song.
Nima Rahmani, what are the feds doing right now? You're a former federal prosecutor. They executed these 2 raids. They arrested this man, Brendan Paul. What are they doing, and how do they figure out if they've got a case here?
Oh, they already have a case, Vinny. The Southern District of New York doesn't execute multiple search warrants at the same time, get a federal judge to sign off on it unless they have a case. They're going to flip the drug meal, the alleged drug meal. They've already talked to the witnesses. And Vinny, I'm telling you, this, I might be in the East Coast now. This happened a mile or two from my house. Okay, that's how close I am to Diddy. My house isn't as big, but this was big news in LA. And I know Diddy's lawyer, Aaron Dyer. We used to work together. So, and Kirk nailed it. I mean, they're looking at sex trafficking, production of child pornography. These are mandatory minimum sentences, 10 or 15 year sentences. So, you know how the feds work. They already got those witnesses lined up, and I'm telling you, it's just a matter of days before an indictment is unsealed and Diddy and others are arrested, probably in a sweeping RICO indictment that names all these as predicate acts.
So do you think there's potentially an indictment already?
There potentially is an indictment that hasn't been unsealed. What agents are doing right now is combing through those records. You got your search warrant, that's been executed, it's going to be returned, and there's going to be an arrest warrant. So it doesn't matter if it's he's under indictment now. He will be under indictment very soon, Vinny. I think they already have the evidence that they need. They're just trying to wrap it up nicely with that digital footprint, hoping to find that those videos that Cassie and the other civil plaintiffs have alleged. And how incredibly stupid was Diddy not to settle that case before it went public? They were talking about the difference between $10 and $30 million, which for him was nothing. But she was the catalyst to bring this whole empire down.
Eklund, Mercy, we only have about 20 seconds here, but do you see a scenario where he ends up like R. Kelly ended up, where he goes away and we just don't hear from him anymore?
He will not go against the dying of the light. He is going to fight. And I think that it's going to be a test to see if corruption is real, because I think that he has a lot of information on some pretty powerful people. So we're going to see if things stick. We're going to see how much pull did Diddy really have.
All right. Great news. Think Tank with us the rest of the hour. Up next.
The Free Karen Read protesters have been showing up to court every time there's a hearing for accused cop killer Karen Read. Now, the DA wants the judge to restrict what they can wear when the trial starts.
Free Karen Read! Love you. Free Karen Read! Free Karen Read!
Welcome back. If you remember last night on this program, we talked about how Alec Murdaugh had failed a polygraph, and it was going to perhaps cause a huge problem with his federal plea deal, because he needed to be honest and cooperate with federal investigators. But they're claiming he failed the polygraph and was lying about some of the crimes, and they are very concerned because there's $6 million that's unaccounted for. This would put in jeopardy his plea deal and perhaps put him in federal prison for so long that even if he got his murder conviction overturned, he would never, ever, 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 ever have the chance to see the light of day. Well, tonight the defense has struck back, and they said that this examiner was asking a lot of odd questions and talking about that he had just administered a lie detector on famed killer Urine Vandersloot. So they're saying that this guy gave an unfair test, and the questions were all over the place. They didn't make sense, and he was talking about Urine Vandersloot. So we'll see what the judge does with it. It's all happening on Monday. In the meantime, it's time to go on the docket.
This will be the first statement of its kind in my dozen years as Norfolk District Attorney. The harassment of witnesses in the murder prosecution of Karen Read is absolutely baseless. The idea that multiple police department, EMTs, fire personnel, the medical examiner, and prosecuting agencies are joined in or taken in by a vast conspiracy should be seen for what it is, completely contrary to the evidence and a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. What is happening to the witnesses, some with no actual involvement in the case, is wrong.
That's DA Morrissey out of Norfolk County, Massachusetts, clearly upset with what's happening in his prosecution of accused cop killer Karen Read. this huge outpouring of support for Karen Reed. But you have protesters and blogger and people who are, in his eyes, intimidating witnesses in the case by going to their places of work, going to their homes, and using bullhorns and screaming at them. And he's charged Turtle Boy, the leader of the movement, with witness intimidation. Well, Karen Reed's been treated like a star. And look at this scene. This is right outside the courthouse, on the courthouse steps. These folks are applauding. They're wearing shirts. They've got signs supporting an accused cop killer. You've never seen anything like it. Take a look.
Free Karen Reed! Free Karen Reed! Free Karen Reed!
Well, we're not putting up with that. We're right here today, Jim McDermott, and we're not going to be quiet. We're here. We got it.
All right. Now, according to a new motion obtained by NBC 10 Boston, I have a copy too, the Commonwealth has made some unique requests of the court regarding this upcoming trial. Take a look. The Commonwealth requests an order prohibiting any individual from demonstrating in any manner, including carrying signs or posters or making statements about the defendant, law enforcement, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, potential witnesses, or the evidence within 500 feet of the Norfolk Superior Court complex. They want to create a buffer zone. This is a small town courthouse. There's like 2 courtrooms in there. One of them is the historic Sacco and Vanzetti courtroom. That's where this case will be tried. There's one way in the front door, and then there's a door on the other side of the courthouse. I've been there. They're also asking that the wearing or carrying of papers, water bottles, tote bags, signs, buttons, pins, T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, or any other attire or item that contains any images or writings that suggest a favorable or unfavorable opinion of either party should be prohibited in any place where the jury might congregate and might see. And they also want to prohibit any individual in the courthouse from wearing any buttoned shirts or insignia related to the defendant, the victim, or law enforcement. How about that? So the DA wants that buffer zone for this trial. Take a listen, though, to David Yannetti, the attorney for Karen Reed, who was upset about what the prosecutor did in this case. And both sides are trying to make sure they get that fair and impartial jury that doesn't get tainted by anything and gives a verdict based on only the evidence, which is what everyone wants. But take a listen to David Yannetti going after the prosecutor.
DA Morrissey went off the rails, gave an unprecedented video statement to the media where he specifically vouched for the credibility of Commonwealth witnesses in violation of the rules of professional responsibility, in violation of this court's order. A member of the public issued a public records request, and we got this to show all of the media outlets that DA Morrissey made sure received his statement. Before any trial has occurred, he called the defense theory in this case, quote, a false narrative. Before any trial has occurred, he announced his opinion that nobody within the home at 34 Fairview participated in any murder or any cover-up. Before any trial, he vouched for the credibility of Commonwealth witnesses Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, and Brian Albert. He announced that those witnesses were forthcoming. In other words, truthful. Before any trial has occurred, DA Morrissey announced that the defense theory is, quote, a desperate attempt to reassign guilt, end quote.
All right, folks. Final pretrial conference, April 12th. Trial begins April 16th. Will we have a buffer zone? Kirk Nermy, you've been at big trials. Do they need the buffer zone here?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of my client, but listen, yeah, I've been there, Vinny, and I know that there are potential interference with the jurors, and there does need to be those deliberations need to be kept sacrosanct and should not be influenced by bloggers who might chase him down the street or people screaming in the courthouse. But at the same time, this motion that the Commonwealth is making is laughable. There's no other way to put it. You cannot restrict the First Amendment rights of basically the entire citizenry because you think that's what it takes to get a fair trial. You have to make other measures. You have to, whether it's the side door, whether you have to move this trial to another courthouse that will accommodate that, will have those measures. Yeah, you ask the jury every day they come in, were they influenced by outside sources? Did they hear anything that would affect their verdict rather than the evidence that's before them? So the court has to be vigilant about that. But this idea, I'd have a tough time arguing against this with a straight face if the Commonwealth put this in because it's so laughable what they are proposing.
Nima, the last trial I covered there was high profile. That's what Court TV does. What they had the jury meet at a remote location. They put them in a van. They drove them a certain way, no windows in the van, drove them to the back of the courthouse and hustled them in every morning. I mean, you could do that and keep the public away from the back of the courthouse.
Well, Vinnie and you and Kirk talked about it. It really comes down to the First Amendment issue. I think it's a reasonable, content-neutral, time, place, manner restriction. Those are generally upheld because, again, the Commonwealth's saying you can't talk to the jurors at all, one way or the other. Now, what Kirk and you mentioned is there a reasonable alternative? Is this the least restrictive means? I don't think it is. You want to sequester those jurors, obviously, high-profile case, move it to another jurisdiction. There's much easier ways to get it done, and frankly,
but it's
you're not.
Such a beautiful courtroom. It's the historic Sacco and Vanzetti courtroom. All right, fasten your seatbelts, everyone. Up next.
In tonight's Tank Takes, a Playboy playmate tries to get her boyfriend out of jail by allegedly bribing a federal officer. Now she's facing 16 years, and tonight we're wondering if her boyfriend will wait for her.
Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard.
A multi-million-dollar high-stakes he said, she said.
He is an abuser.
She clocked me in the jaw.
Amber Heard forever changed Mr. Depp's life and reputation.
Everything I've said to date now is the truth.
Why lie?
What happened behind closed doors?
It was a shocking story.
Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Weekdays 4 to 8 on Court TV Legendary Trials. Stream with your favorite app or find out how to watch on CourtTV.com.
Welcome back. Time for tonight's Tank Takes, where we take a look at the world of crime and justice and some stories that we have to do them here. We can't do them anywhere else. We have to do them here. Still with us, our think tank, Eklund Mercy, Kirk Nurmi, and Nima Rahmani. Are you ready?
Yes.
Ready.
All right, first story. I'm calling this one Dumb Lord. A man named Ronald Frisbee III is a landlord, and he was unhappy with his tenants because they allegedly broke a washer and dryer. So around 2:45 a.m. on Saturday, he took a cardboard box, lit it on fire, and threw it inside their apartment. Nobody was hurt, but he did sort of like burn his own property down. Eklund Mercy, what should his punishment be, Mr. Frisbee?
Anger management. Not everybody is cut out to be a landlord. It will test all of your emotional, spiritual, and all types of stress. If you can't do it, don't do it. Not everybody's cut out for that job.
Kirk, this guy deserves a squatter.
Yeah, this guy deserves a prison cell, I think. Too much talking heads. This is next level stupid. Burning down your own house, putting people in danger, straight to prison. Let Nima send him off.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, no one got hurt, but obviously extremely dangerous. Let's get to our next story, Nima. Why don't we? I'm calling this one Bad Bunny, and a Playboy model. She is. I don't make it up. She just is accused of trying to bribe a Department of Homeland Security federal agent with $5,000 because her boyfriend got locked up for gun possession. There he is. Nice looking couple. And he was in the Honolulu's federal detention center. So she wanted to give $5,000 to the Homeland Security guy to convince a judge to release her. She gets charged with 1 count of bribery, 1 count of obstruction of justice, facing, I believe, up to 16 years. So I think she's going to be locked up longer than he will be. But the question tonight, Nima, will he wait for her?
No way, Vinny. Don't mess with the feds, man. You might have your pretty privilege, but, you know, you saw what happened to Diddy. Doesn't matter who you are. They're going to take you out.
Eklund, what do you think?
Oh, they never wait. He probably has a new girlfriend right now. It happens so often. I can't tell you how many people I've prevented from being this stupid, but it happens very often.
I think she really loves him, Kirk.
Look, $5,000, that's not much of a bribe. You can't even buy 5 minutes with Nima Rahmani for $5,000, man. You got to up your rate.
Final story tonight, and then we've been waiting a long time for this one, folks. The return of Juan Valdez. We go to California. A man was being chased by police. His car breaks down, and then you're going to see what happens. Let's take a look at the video.
Boy 13, his tire's coming apart. Across towards the median.
All right, there he goes. Now he's attempting a carjacking, but instead he's doing like, look at this. What is he doing? Down the road, there he goes, Juan Valdez. What's going on here, Kirk? Too much coffee for Mr. Valdez?
Maybe, but I think Hollywood found their next Spider-Man, Vinny. That was some pretty acrobatic stuff when he was going down that road.
Hey, he's not from Florida, Nima. He's from California.
Oh, my God.
Oh, Vinny, we love a good car chase in California. I mean, come on, man. We have OJ, we had the tank. You know, I expected to see Diddy in a Bugatti, but his private jet was in Antigua.
Eklund, I'll give you the final word tonight on Juan Valdez. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
For the excitement factor, it was fast and furious. That's all. Don't do this. It's very illegal. Don't do it. But
do not do it. Exactly. Otherwise, you got to call folks like Eklund, Kirk, and Nima. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Great to see you. Eklund Mercy, Kirk Nerman, Nima Rahmani. We'll see you again really, really soon. Before we go tonight, take a look at your screens. If you're listening to the show, you need to watch right now. This is Trinity David. She's missing from Columbia, South Carolina since March 23rd. Trinity is only 13 years old. She may be in the local area, maybe wearing a nose ring. Her hair is two-tone in color, light brown in the front, dark brown in the back, and she may go by the name Trin. So if you see her, please pick up the phone, 1-800-THE-LOST, 911, or the Richland County Sheriff's Office in South Carolina. That phone number is on the screen right now. Let's see if we can get Trinity to a safe place tonight. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for watching. Have a great night. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.